If I jumped into your company today and I took over RevOps in 2026, this is where I would actually want to use AI. I feel like AI is a really hot topic, as it has been for the past few years. And it gets really confusing what tools we should be using, where we should be utilizing AI. And there's a lot of times people just like bypass a lot of security stuff that screws up your company, puts you in a bad place, potentially can get you fired if you do it wrong. So I want to share 5 different tools that I would use for your 5 top priorities that you care about as a RevOps leader, where you should use that AI and how you can avoid some of those costly mistakes I've seen others make. So to get this out of the way, my name is Jordan Nelson. Bunch of stuff over here on the left about me, kind of the call outs here. Have over 100,000 followers on LinkedIn. I'm part of their LinkedIn top voice, which is 0.001% of people only on that platform. Really just share that with you to say, I've been sharing information online for the past 6-7 years about my Salesforce journey, what I know, consulting. YouTube is a little bit of a newer channel for us, but have all that information over there if you can. Before I started my consulting firm, I worked for 4 different billion-dollar tech startups: Podium, Divvy, Health Equity, Vercel. Implemented these strategies working with their RevOps leaders and their sales ops managers and their marketing ops managers on the Salesforce team to architect it in a way to be able to scale with them as they grew to these large valuations. So what do I do now? Like I just mentioned, I run a Salesforce consulting firm called Simply Scale. We're a team all based here in the USA. We are a certified partner with Salesforce certified experts. You have to get Salesforce certifications, show that you know what you're talking about. We have all those, and we exclusively work with tech companies that are growing from 3 million to 100 million in ARR. Some of those have been Clickly, SoFarJet notable that we've worked with so far. So getting that out of the way, just sharing that with you so that you know that what we're about to talk about is not based on theory. It's not based on me Googling stuff. It's not based on just some random person trying to make videos online. This is something that I do day in and day out, and I've been doing for a decade with a bunch of different tech companies. So this information should hopefully be credible to you now. Okay, so jumping right into this, right? The main thing that we're trying to talk about today, AI, tools, RevOps, what do we do? So the precursor to jumping into the tools real quick, AI should feel like this is strengthening the brain of the company. And the brain of the company, likely for you at this stage, is going to be Salesforce. Down the line, you might start considering things like a data lake. Those are usually things like Snowflake. A data lake is really where we would push all your information and it syncs up with Salesforce so that we can still see insights and data in Salesforce and take action on it. But like all of our historical stuff that we don't usually use is going to sit in a data lake. At this stage of your business, you're probably not considering that yet as far as cost or the amount of data that you have. So Salesforce really is the brain. Okay. So everything that we want as far as taking action on the business health should live inside of Salesforce. So my first call out before I even talk about the tools is we're really not trying to introduce these AI tools to compete as a new brain. It's going to feel that way when you first start using them because of AI and everything has its own insights and its own agents and its own thing. And so as you start accumulating these tools, which you likely already have, you kind of start to feel like, well, why don't we just use, Gong over here for this? Or why don't we just use MailChimp over here for this? Or HubSpot for that? Like you start feeling like you have all these different truths out there. We want to avoid that completely. We want to have all of these integrate with Salesforce to make it better and use that tool as something to supplement what we're doing, but not to replace it, okay? So this is to feed better data, cleaner inputs, smarter outputs, take action. So turn data into actual decisions so we can move forward as a company, reduce errors. So where possible, we want to automate some of this tedious work that has been going to people in the past. Now we have all this automation stuff in AI. We want to give it to them instead. All right, so tool number 1, first one I just mentioned would be Gong. This is a really popular one. There's a few different options you have here. Gong seems to be a really popular choice right now for tech startups. Outreach is probably another one. But Gong, really why I see this being helpful is it's going to help you out with forecasting and pipeline, which is a big deal to RevOps, right? So the problem we usually see is that forecasts rely on optimism, reps telling us the truth, hopeful wishes, right? Because they're trying to report to their sales managers their numbers. And so they're trying to make it look really good. And it sometimes makes it hard for us to read in between the lines to be like, do we actually have revenue coming in this month? Or is that just like a hopeful wish that you're saying back to your sales manager and reporting to us, right? So there's a lot of like reading in between the lines before the AI days. So what I would do now is try to break that down, right? So stage definitions are going to mean something different to everybody. Leadership is always guessing between these things because of this problem. So how I'd use Gong is I would sync it up to Salesforce, like I said at the beginning, and have it look at all of our opportunities. I would then want to set up some of their agents that they offer to track buying signals. So things like budget discussions, timeline commitments, decision maker engagement, all of those types of agents on their website you can go and look at that they have pre-built. They'll tell you what they do, especially if you get a demo with them, they'll run through how these things can help you. They also have a really good dashboard in there too to show you where your pipeline's at for each sales rep. You can also kind of have some chat GPT type features in there where you can ask it what's going on with this particular deal. It'll go through all of your sales conversations and then spit back out to you. Looks like we're hung up on this because so-and-so has not gotten back to us. Do you want me to draft an email? So it has some really cool stuff like that to just minimize the amount of thinking that the rep has to do and just focus on what we want them to focus on, which is just being on the phone better, following up when they're supposed to, and perfecting the pitch so that they can close more deals. So I would set it up to look for those signals. Like I said, they already kind of have that pre-programmed to do that. And then flag deals with no next step scheduled, or we feel like there's going to be a stall, so that we can avoid being like in a sandbagging position if that's what the sales rep is doing, or avoid it from dying out just because we're not following up with them. I would also have AI deal risk alerts tied to my pipeline as well. So this is another agent, basically can just kind of look through all of the conversations we had and then prevent some type of stall or a deal not being able to close. So it'll flag us for that type of stuff. So I think that's a really great way that we can use Gong here. It's going to increase our forecast. It's going to have, for you and your team, a lot less surprises because we're actually going to see the truth coming through, which I think is the main call out here. And the pipeline health is going to be a lot cleaner. It's harder for people to kind of fake what they're actually doing month over month with you because Gong is just going to be feeding in the data. So it's not going to replace Salesforce, like we said, but it will make your pipeline a lot better and easier to understand where we're at with our forecasting throughout the month. Tool number 2, this one's a really popular one. It's more middleware, Zapier. This one is a good one to connect your systems with. And how I see this being used is we essentially have 2 decisions that you can make. Similar to the one I mentioned about the data lake and Salesforce being your brain, this one's similar to middleware like a Zapier. Another one that might be popular for you is make.com. There's the NAN. There's a few different ones nowadays that all basically do the same thing. I like Zapier because at this stage, it's cheap. It's really easy to use. You don't need to be a brainiac to get in there and figure out how to use it. Anybody can just start using it. It's really DIY friendly, and that's why I like Zapier a lot. I've been using this one a ton myself, and I would say majority of tech businesses use Zapier unless they're really engineering forward. If they have their own product that they're selling in terms of like trying to compete within the engineering space, DevOps type stuff, then I feel like they go with something that's a little more like a make.com that can do some more stuff. Zapier, though, I think does the job really well. Here's what I would do. There's those 2 options, like I said, and basically what you have to make a decision on at some point is, do we want to integrate everything with Salesforce, or do we need to have these tools that kind of just sit out there, and how do we integrate them? And I would say best practice from a Salesforce standpoint is always try to integrate it with Salesforce. Salesforce does offer a lot of apps that connect whatever tool you use to Salesforce. So for example, like if you want MailChimp integrated with Salesforce, there's an app on the Salesforce app store. It's called the App Exchange. You can go down. So that would be like best practice. But here's what I see in like the real world that happens is that you have all these different tools, and it's maybe not always realistic to like either go find the app or they have the app. And you probably also don't always want to have to do like a hard direct integration, like do it yourself. So Zapier is a good choice where, let's say if we are going to be using 25 different tools, well, instead of having maybe some of them directly integrated with Salesforce, some of them with Zapier or a different middleware, and then some not integrated altogether, it gets a little chaotic having it in all a bunch of different places. So I like Zapier in the sense that it can just connect it all and we make that our plan. So, hey, we're actually not going to directly integrate because we know we have these 25 tools and not all of them are going to be easy to do that with. So in this instance, we're just going to use Zapier as kind of our hub for all integrations. And then we're going to use that as a tool to connect it to Salesforce and connect it with the messages and things like that that we want to do. Okay, so it's a little bit longer and I want to spend on that piece of it, but that's more or less what you'll have to make a decision on. And I don't think that there's necessarily a right or wrong. Like I said, best practice, people will tell you, is direct integration. But, I have seen companies in this situation where it's like, well, we have all these tools, so what do we do there? It's going to be more maintenance for us to try to like look in 5 different places of where this stuff's integrated versus just using one middleware. So consider that. The problem here, like I said, tools usually aren't connected. You'll have manual updates everywhere. Data is going to die in between systems because you're just not getting the follow-ups that you need to between the two. And this goes for marketing, support, sales, finance sometimes, your leadership sometimes. So what I've seen here is Zapier really being a good solution for something like this. The outcome usually is less manual work, cleaner data flow, fewer spreadsheets that you have to worry about, less workarounds that you have to worry about. Just makes it a lot cleaner for you to connect. Tool number 3, this one's Clay. This one is one that I've actually started using for my own business now at this point, but a really popular one I've been seeing over the last couple of years for tech companies. Where I see this being used is with their targeting, so lead and messaging, and works really well too if you do account-based marketing. What this tool does for us is it prevents the SDRs from feeling like they're going after leads that really aren't a good fit for us, or that they're missing some type of signal that they're looking for, like there was a new hire, or they recently raised some money, or somebody recently got let go from a position, or, list goes on and on what your buying signals might be. It'll look for those, and it makes it a little bit easier for you to contact the people at the right time and kind of do the manual lifting there. I think before, using a really easy example, if you haven't been introduced to this tool, my business before I started doing this, like we're a smaller business, and before we started using this, it's a lot of manual effort. It's like me or someone on the team going and just kind of picking out accounts that we potentially want to work with. And you're kind of just messaging them on a whim. You're either going to cold email them, cold DM them, reach out to them in some way and hope it's the right time to do business. And as you know, your life's also going to get busy. So if you're not a dedicated salesperson, or your salesperson is, but you don't have a great way to organize all this information right now, it's always going to kind of feel like, I don't know, I followed up with them like 5 times in the last like couple months and nothing's happened. So I'm good. Whereas now this will help you hit them at the right time. So it's like, yeah, that's fine that you reached out to them 5 times, but now they just hired this person, which likely means they're ready to use our product or service. So we should probably reach out now. Now is a better time that they're going to be more open to this type of conversation. So really helpful for getting you to the right person at the right time. I would say down here, it's just going to improve what we have inside of our brain or the CRM Salesforce, and create better inputs, create better outcomes for you guys downstream. So really cool tool, Clay. All right, tool number 4. This one's more internal. So another thing that we care a lot about when we are doing any type of operations, RevOps, sales ops, marketing ops, is making sure we have internal documentation written down somewhere, used somewhere. Now, I have kind of been hit or miss myself with Notion. I would say the majority of tech companies, though, that I've worked for and with tend to lean towards Notion for their internal documentation in the early days. So instead of using maybe, and some maybe more like go towards Jira as you get more enterprise. But in the beginning, Notion is a place where we would set up all of the documentation to say, this is how you do your job. This is what you should do in this type of situation. And they have that listed out for every department that you're managing. So RevOps in particular, right? We might have all these different SOPs that we're creating for different scenarios. And Notion now with AI allows you to be able to search their documentation a lot more. I think clear back to when I was working out full-time for another company, we used Notion. This is before AI days. And I just thought it was like a nightmare because there's so many different tabs on the left to click into. And so it was always hard for me to remember, okay, where did we store this information so I can just find it? Now with AI, same idea with the ChatGPT, you can actually just search for stuff in there and it will surface it to you. So this makes it a lot easier for all your users to use it. And a really good platform in general for note taking. So I think now with the AI piece of it, if I were to go back to that company I'm referring to, it's probably a lot better experience for me at this point in time versus what it was a few years ago. So this helps you just make sure everything's in the right spot at the right time, easy to use. So again, document standards, you can build all your playbooks in here, summarize any type of meetings. Sometimes you might want to do that for internal or company meetings, have that stuff in there, and just basically a centralized knowledge base for the inside of your company. So really cool one, Notion AI for that. Okay, and then tool number 5, this is going to be our last one. I debated on kind of which one I wanted to pick here. What I do see in like most modern tech companies though, is you usually are going to be using HubSpot, Salesforce, or Marketo for your marketing efforts. I would say that's most popular. You might have some other tools out there to supplement that, like sending out our emails might still be done in something like a MailChimp. But our marketing analytics, like stuff that we want to do in there, is going to come down to one of those three. My preference out of all three is actually HubSpot. I've used Salesforce's tool, whatever they're calling it nowadays. It used to get called Pardot. Might just be more like Marketing Cloud now. And I think they've had a couple other names that they've tried to make this better and better. Every time that I've tried to see that get implemented, I just feel like the learning curve is so high and there's a lot more effort to try to make it work versus HubSpot. HubSpot is a lot more DIY friendly, easier to understand, easier to use, in my opinion, which is probably why I also see most tech companies use HubSpot versus Salesforce or Marketo. But those are the top three. So if you are using it for your marketing efforts over here and trying to understand who's doing what, again, kind of comes back to the revenue for RevOps, how many leads are coming in, our forecasting, our pipeline, buying intent, buying signals, why deals are missed, where we could improve things based on those signals. Like those are all things that are going to roll up typically to RevOps. In that situation over here, this is a really helpful tool to be able to use that. Okay, so low quality MQLs waste a bunch of time on your sales reps. Poor lead scoring creates friction. Weak campaign feedback loops mean you have a lot of repetitive mistakes that happen. And so our job to kind of make sure that does not happen on the RevOps side. So here's what I would do to deploy this one. Refine lead scoring models and behaviors within there, some of those buying signals as well. Analyze campaign performance across different marketing channels and segments. Improve segmentation based on those engagement patterns or those engagement signals that we're getting back. Optimize messaging using conversion data now that we have it all in one spot over here. This is going to help you have better inputs, obviously better outputs back into Salesforce. This is another cool one too, that it syncs up real nicely with Salesforce. So the integration between the two, really smooth, not a lot of problems, really easy to set up, something we do all the time. So they talk nice with one another too, and it usually gives you all the data that you want to see in between the two platforms there. So that's another reason why I would recommend this one, even though it's not technically a Salesforce tool. Okay, cool. So last but not least, this is kind of just how I wanted to end the video here with you. AI, again, is not something we're trying to use to replace RevOps, and it's not really a pattern I'm seeing to try to replace RevOps. I think sometimes we see those headlines where we see all these like agents that are being used and all these farms out there with these agents that are being built up, and it's just replacing everybody's job. It's really not what I'm seeing right now at the beginning of 2026. Really just seeing this to still continue to just supplement what we do, take away from some of those things that take a lot of time to figure out what the answer might be. Like I'm saying, buying signals and buying behavior and intent and what's actually going to happen with this deal in our forecasting and pipeline, that kind of stuff that just takes manual effort to sift through data. Having set up in that place with AI can give you those answers a little bit quicker and just make you guys move a lot faster as a business. So it's just going to replace a lot more of the guessing is what I have here. Salesforce will still remain the brain of your company. These 5 tools that I've mentioned here are just trying to help you improve signal quality, friction, cleaner data, and strengthening and increasing operational leverage that you guys have as you continue to grow as a company. So those 5, again, Gong, Zapier, Clay, Notion, HubSpot. Feel free to go back through this if you need to see those details. That's what I would do if I was in your position going into 2026, what I should be using with all the AI tools that are out there. Now, if this seems maybe a little overwhelming or you're thinking, great, that's super helpful, I still don't really know how to implement this or the strategy to use when I go to implement this, it's no problem. That's something that we do all the time. There's a link in the description below. You can click on that. It'll send you over to see if we're a good fit for you guys. And if we are a good fit, we'd love to set something up, talk about your business, what you guys do, and then get these tools implemented into your RevOps team so that you guys can start scaling faster and outpace those competitors of yours. So if that sounds interesting, click the link below. Look forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks.